Welcome to Let's Talk Texas, the official podcast of the Texas House Republican Caucus. I'm your host, Jordan Overturf, aka J2, Communications Director for the caucus, bringing to you a very special guest today, State Representative Geanie Morrison. For those who don't know, Representative Morrison is the longest serving female Republican state legislator in the House currently. To put that in perspective, the longest serving Democratic female state representative, is Symphonia Thompson. Everyone knows her as Miss T. She has been here for over 50 years. Representative Morrison, contrastly, has been here about half of that time. We talk about getting into the race in the late 90s, talking about growing up in the Reagan era and what that did for her and shaping her politics. Representative Morrison has a lot to offer in terms of comparing and contrasting what sessions used to look like when Democrats were in control of the Texas House versus now where Republicans are in control. They have been since 2003, and she offers great perspective on the changing of the guard there, as well as the differences between a normal session versus these COVID restrictions that have been put in place on the legislature this time around. So a great, well-rounded discussion about the old days of the Texas House, what's happening now, bills she's focusing on, and priorities she's going to bring home for her district. So let's talk Texas. Deadline was last week. How is session going for you so far?
Well, it's one of those things. We always start off very slowly. The hard part this time is we don't have any pomp and circumstance, to even do to kind of get rolling. But this week is very busy. Been working on appropriations for a couple of weeks prior. Took a little break, and then we're going to be working on the articles this week, and so Article 3 this week, and committees are starting to hear bills, and you can feel that things are starting to really pop out there, especially when we have big bills that are, big issues that are out there right now that are looking to be addressed. And so seems like things are really starting to roll.
Yeah. You have been in the legislature for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever recall a time when things have kind of happened like they have this session where the legislature is here and they can actually jump in and respond to stuff like this? Is this something that you've had experience with in the past?
Well, it's so different because last session I did a lot of bills on Hurricane Harvey, but that was an event that had already happened. The event was over, but not the consequences of it.
Yeah.
This has been so totally different because, of course, to have a pandemic for a year. I mean, none of us have been through that. And then to have this horrible freeze right on top of us while we're first here and starting to get rolling and then have to stop for a week. And you think what the issues are coming in. And, it's always interesting because I've always talked to people and it's always been, don't think you know what the issues are until you read the newspaper the next morning and then that's your issue for the day. Well, this has definitely changed everything because the pandemic was going to be number one. Then also funding and appropriations was going to be hard because of the jobs lost and the revenue. And then we have this historic freeze that happens that just did a whole nother reset of a huge issue that no one anticipated that has kind of sucked the air out of everything.
Yeah.
With those hearings with state affairs. And it's not an easy fix. It's something that we learn something new every day, every time there is a hearing in state of affairs. And so you just have to readjust and know that things are different. You just have to adjust to it every day.
Yeah, and state affairs is always a busy committee, but this time around with all the ERCOT reform stuff that's popped up, it seems like every hearing there's a new update on that situation, and then you've got the pandemic response bills starting to come through. So It's been interesting to watch. Obviously, you don't, like you said, there's not a lot of the pomp and circumstance. Bringing state championship football teams, right. Or basketball teams for that matter. Go Cougs! Sorry, had to throw it out there.
Got it there.
I guess we could say hook 'em horns
I was
too.
Say you got the horns
right.
this week too.
Well, TSU also
right.
Texas Southern.
Yeah.
So all of those good things going on, but. Coronavirus, everyone's being very responsible in the legislature. So we haven't had those folks come down. This has also offered the opportunity for legislators to really focus on all the work that needs to get done too, right? The first half of this session has been so mission focused. Even with the middle of the freeze happening, it seems like lawmakers have been just hustling, meeting with folks, working on legislation, all of that stuff. It's,
Right. There has a lot, I think a lot of it is too, it's so different doing Zoom meetings and not talking to people in person. There's a lot of information gathered and exchanging, but just sitting down across from someone at the table and being able to have those conversations, it is very different. And sometimes you get different answers than you might doing on a Zoom call with other people. But you're right. There's just been a lot of visiting with people and getting input. A lot of it is input that you were doing on bills or things that people were bringing you to carry. But now even that focus has changed. And I think you're seeing a lot of, well, we'll see what happens this session. We're really not sure. We know we have to do a budget. And we know we have to do redistricting in the end, and we've got to find some solution to what happened with the freeze. But that is not going to be easy, and it's going to take time. There's a lot of moving parts to that also.
Yeah, and committees have already been meeting. A few of them have voted some bills out. We expect floor activity to start picking up for y'all to start debating and things like that. So, the slower part of session has... it's all that activity in the background that most people in the public don't see unless they're, live streaming the 25 hours of committee hearings.
Right, exactly. Unless they wanted to watch state affairs for hours and hours
and
hours.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And you can go back and watch the archival footage. That's
right.
the beauty of the, these open meetings and things like that. Well, it's Women's History Month. And obviously on the podcast, we're featuring our Republican female members. And so... with you being the longest serving Republican state representative in the House, we really wanted to just find out from you, what has been your experience in that role? How have things kind of changed? You're one of the few Republicans, outside of Dean Craddock, who have that experience of serving under Democrat House leadership and then the flip. So let's start with the basic thing. How did you first get started into campaigns and politics? And were there a lot of women really engaging at that point?
How I got started was basically back when being a young mother and being at home and watching TV. And really the Reagan era is really what got me interested. Listening to what he was saying, listen to the issues that we had going on at the time. I became involved with a campaign. The first campaign I was involved with was actually a campaign when Governor Clements ran. And I had some friends that had become involved in working on his campaign locally in Victoria. And so I started working with them. Then right after that, we had a state reps race. We had a senator move up and move on, and then there was a special election. And so I got involved in that. We'd never had a Republican that had been elected to state rep at the time. We were not successful, but we worked really hard. And so, I really became interested in politics and just kind of grassroots. Politics with friends that there were not a whole lot of us, but there was a good, strong Republican women's group. Mm-hmm. And we had some Republican women that had been involved in statewide politics for a while. Betty Jo Bueller was one of my mentors. Her son-in-law is Lamar Alexander. So it tells you how much she was involved in politics back, for many years. She was just passionate, and there were several women like that I really looked up to and became involved. And so just got involved with grassroots, and then got involved with Republican women locally. I really enjoyed what they were doing, what they were saying as my children grew older, and really mattered to me what was happening. My family had always been Republican, but were never activist, but had always been Republican. And so just enjoyed it. And then just working in the community and working in a lot of volunteer programs and being a volunteer for a lot. And I'd never planned on running, ever, had never planned on running. But I was involved the first, when Governor Bush was coming around campaigning for his dad, I got to know him very well. And also Phil Graham, helped Phil Graham a lot too, because I had a local friend that knew him well. And when he switched parties, this friend came to me and he said, we've got this great guy that just switched parties and I want you to meet him and come to this event and meet. So Senator Graham was a big hero for me. I loved what he said, and Dickie Flatt. You know, that was always the way that you looked at things. See what would Dickie Flatt say about this? But did that. Got to know George W. Bush a lot when his dad was helping campaign for his dad, and worked on elections. And then when he ran for governor, worked very hard for him to be elected. And then I was actually on his inaugural committee, and then worked in Governor Bush's office I was appointed to the Governor's Commission for Women. And we had a great group of women from around the state. And then I was asked to be the chair of that. And then the young woman that worked for Laura Bush that was in charge of this, she was going to move. And she called me and she said, Miss Bush would really like for you to take over this. And I said, well, I live in Victoria. I can't do something. And she said, oh no, we'll work on this, and you can do it. So finally decided, my children were out of the house and off to school. And so I worked as the Governor's Commission for Women, ED, for a year and a half, which also housed volunteerism at the time, which was my passion. So we did these big volunteerism commission. The commission did conferences, and we honored women. We had a great Texas Women's Hall of Fame that we put on, a big extravaganza, and just loved it. I loved it. So I did that for a year and a half, and then our state rep decided he was going to run for something else, and approached me about running. And I said, I really don't have any interest in that. I love behind the scenes and doing all that. And he said, well, we've had a group of people that have already met and decided they really have decided you're the one that needs to step into this role. And I said, well, you're going to have to give me some time to think about this, because I never had planned on doing that.
Well, and it is great to hear that this is a new fad or something that is in response to whatever's happening on the left or the zeitgeist of the culture.
Yeah.
I think it's so easy for us to forget that Republican women have been a force in politics for a long time, a long time in this state. And so it's interesting, though, for you to be following along and pushing these initiatives, trying to help, women in leadership roles, all while supporting the Republican Party at a time when, Texas Democrats really latched on to Ann Richards, and that seemed to be where the energy and the momentum of the Democratic Party was going. For you, what was the response to that at that time, is it the same at this time, where it's not so much based on being a female XYZ, right? Mm-hmm. You're just a Texan. These are your values, and they align with the party, not necessarily your identity. I guess, how did you respond to it back then when the energy seemed to be going a lot similarly to the way the energy is now on the two sides?
Right. Well, it was very interesting because it was an open seat. And so locally, all of the local elected officials were still Democrats. You still did not have Republicans that were in local elected seats. Mm-hmm. Conservative people, yes, but not Republicans. So we had a huge primary, and I was the only female, of course, in the whole election cycle, but actually a good friend that was a doctor that had been on the city council ran. And so we were opponents, but we were friends also. And so I won the primary, And then we had, there was a primary, Democrat primary too. Two people I really knew, one that I knew for a long time had been on city council also. And they had, a huge primary. It was very close. I mean, both primaries were very close. And then the person that came out that won that primary was not who I expected to win. But so we had a huge race too. I mean, it was back in the time where the parties were very, very split, and there were a lot more Democrats than there were Republicans. Mm-hmm. And so I did win, but I never felt like it had anything to do with being a woman. It was about the issues that I was interested in, and the issues I was interested in representing the district in also. So I never felt like it made any difference at that time that I was a female. And then when I came into the Texas House, there were 11 Republican women. And I looked back in history, and there have only been 54 total Republican women ever in the House. And Kay Bailey Hutchison was the first in 1973 when Semfronia Thompson came in as a Democrat woman. And so we've never had many Republican women, but 11 then. Then, as you know, we only had 6 for several years. We now have 7. We have one more. Mm-hmm. But the Democrat women have really elected a lot of new Democrat women the last 2 election cycles. I mean, we've been very outpaced. And so one of the things I really want to concentrate on in the next year is just encouraging and mentoring and helping recruit women to run and come to the legislature. We've got 2 new Republican women that are going to be outstanding. And I think we just need to get out there and help recruit and be mentors and encourage them to run.
Yeah. Shout out to Shelby Slauson and Lacey Hull.
Yes.
Shelby's going to actually be coming in next week for the podcast.
Yeah,
so
going to be great members.
And so, it's not just within the House. You've got Kat Parks, Vice Chair of the Republican Party of Texas, who's out there, a great recruiter for candidates.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, I guess as you're talking to young women about their run, coming together, all this experience that you have, both from volunteerism to, that first race and now decades of being reelected. What is your advice to these young women as they look to their own political gauntlets?
Well, and I think, as we were talking, it's not necessarily just political, just getting involved in your community, knowing what the issues are out there, knowing what people are passionate about, and then wanting to make a difference, because you can make a difference from the local elected all the way up to a Texas House member or to a statewide. But it's really knowing the issues and being passionate about them and understanding them and knowing what it is you want to do. I mean, one of the things I was passionate about working with young women, young teenagers that were pregnant. There were several things that I did working with them, and that was really one of my passions, which also translated into higher education, which I've been very passionate about since I've been in the House, because education can transform anyone. And it doesn't have to be a 4-year education. You just make sure that you continue your education so you have a better job and better life. And so it's those things that there have got to be some issues that really spark an interest, and you want to make a change and feel like that you can contribute mostly.
Yeah, and a lot of volunteerism, I feel like, helps open those doors, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Exposes you to new things, and you discover your path, right?
Right.
And I'm also noticing themes, Representative Noble, who was our first guest on the podcast, same deal. She volunteered with her church, helping out with their food pantry and their clothing distribution.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we sponsored the youth group at our church and was very involved with the youth group. I mean, I just really enjoy the youth and working with young adults, because you look and see what a change you can make in someone's life. And so it's similar, the same thing. That's always been a passion of mine, is working with the youth, and always involved in what my children were doing as far as what they were involved in and different activities. And so the youth is really what has really been my inspiration to try to help them.
Well, that's good too, because that's, nurturing and fostering the future of our state and our nation. So Well, we've spent so much talking about the past and things like that. Looking ahead to the rest of this session, I guess let's start off. What committees are you serving on for those who missed those announcements?
Okay. I serve on Appropriations Committee, and I'm on Article 3 of the Appropriations as we divide it all up because it's such a large process. And so Article 3 is education, public education, and higher education. And your funding for higher education comes through Article 3. And so, of course, that's a passion of mine. And so we're working on that. I also serve on Environmental Regulation Committee. I've chaired that in the past. I've been on that committee for several sessions. In the area where I live, along the coast, it's so important. And that's another thing. You look at things that are, are for your district, but environmental regulation is huge for the whole state.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's so many things that go through that committee and things that you have to deal with that come down from Washington also. It's, it's very integral. And then also redistricting, which, redistricting is going to be tough. I mean, our numbers are going to come so late. We're not going to get them till late summer, early fall. And so there were a lot of hearings that were done earlier. There's still more that need to be done, but redistricting is very dicey. And at this point, there are not very many members in that Texas House that have been through a redistricting and also a tough redistricting cycle. And so that is the other committee that I'm looking forward to help work on that because it's tough. It's very tough.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, because those numbers are delayed, a lot of folks are going to be pushing pause on that conversation.
Yes.
It's all hypothetical until we see the real data.
We don't know the real numbers, and with Hurricane Harvey having come through my district, you don't know what really is still there and not. I mean, I don't think we really have any idea up and down the coast what our numbers will really be.
Yeah, and hurricane season is unfortunately not far away
again. And, last season was, there were so many hurricanes and you worry about that. I mean, we barely missed. I mean, we had some damage, but we barely missed. Poor Louisiana just kept getting them because we actually had fronts that came through that pushed it up their way that were coming our way. So you have to worry about that too.
Yeah. Our folks on the coast are always vigilant during that time of year. Looking forward, are there specific bills that you're really pushing or focusing on right now, or some that you've got queued up for later in session that you're really proud about?
Right. I don't ever pre-file. I did pre-file one bill that was a continuation from last session that we didn't quite finish, but usually I wait until I get committee assignments because there's so much that you do within your committees that you can help with. Several working with higher ed and funding, but just other issues coming through environmental reg also. I always go back, of course, to my elected officials to see if there are things that they need and work with them on that. So, I'm not a lot of bill filing, but whenever you get your committees, then there are more things that fall into place that you carry. So doing a lot of that and looking forward to seeing where we get. And this session is going to be so different. I don't know how much we'll actually be able to accomplish except for the big items, but we're all teed up, ready to work on it.
Yeah. So for the younger members who may be watching this, looking for some tips and things like that, when budget night, things like that come along, and we've got some long hours on the House floor. Right. Any tips, recommendations to help them power through?
Well, I think the most important thing is just, there's no way that you can know everything, and everyone has to understand that. That's why you really concentrate on your committees and the knowledge there and the things that you're carrying. But just know that it's going to be tough. Budget's always tough, and as we know, things change. The budget originates in the Senate this year, and so we will get their bill over, and then we'll work on it through committee and bring it to the House. But it's just a very interesting process, and sit back, hold on, and just enjoy and learn, because there's so much to learn. There's no way that you can know how things really work until you sit in there and have deep dive into it, and it'll still take you about 3 sessions to really know how things work. But just if there's anything anyone wants to know, don't hesitate to ask. There are no dumb questions. We've all been there. There's no way to know how every committee works or what comes through a committee subject-wise. Just ask questions and find mentors that know about particular committees. If you know someone serving on a committee and you have questions, go to that person and ask them. And then you can be that person too on your committee, because we all have to have help and work with each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a communal process that, going through the legislature, and now that the House floor is going to be meeting at a regular clip here, it'll probably give them a little bit more of that opportunity. But I imagine that first long night on the floor will be a bit of a shock to some of the newer members.
Yes, it will. And, that's the hard thing about not being on the floor, because we've not had the opportunity to really visit. We've been there short because of the pandemic. But that's the time that you get to know people, and now that we have committees really working, because you learn the people on your committees, you learn who they are and about them because you're working with them, and then you learn who's around you in the area that you sit. And we just have not had that opportunity yet. So we're getting ready to have to go into overdrive and get to know everyone. Well, looking forward to it.
And I'm glad you talked about getting to know the people around you, because you recently received an award from your desk mate for what? It's 23 years now, you and
22.
Phil King? 22 years. You and Phil King have been sitting on the House floor next to each other, picking a desk mate. What is that a very important decision for a member to make? And I guess, has it made it easier having Phil King as your desk mate all these years?
It's very interesting, because when Phil and I came in our first session in 99, as you know, we draw out of a hat for seniority. So there were 25 of us in our class. So we draw out of the hat. Well, Phil got 149 and I got 150. And so over in the area that we sit, up in the front to the right of the dais, back in the time when we came in, was known as Red Square, because literally it was all very liberal Democrats that sat in that area. And so I sat right behind Phil, because, of course, we had to take the last two seats. So I sat behind Phil the first session, because one of our classmates from San Antonio, Democrat, sat by Phil. Well, then he lost his reelection, and so then that seat was available. And so I moved up into that, because no one was going to move up into that area. So I moved up to the seat by Phil. But it was really a great experience, because we met people and got to know them that you would not have known your first year in session, that were very liberal Democrats, and have great friends. I mean, still have one person that still sits in that area that I've known all this time. My seatmate, my first legislative session, was actually the head of the unions in Houston.
Okay.
And he was a great guy. He was so nice, so friendly, because I'd ask him about bills and I'd say, well, that bill sounds really interesting. Oh, that's been on the floor 3 times. It's never going to pass. And then he would always tell me, he said, whenever you get ready to vote, if you have any doubts about anything, just vote opposite than me and you're going to be fine. And it was real funny, because at the end of the session, and I don't remember what the bill was at the time that we were voting, and I was voting with him, and he looked at me, he said, are you sure you want to vote yes on that bill? But it really was. It was a great learning experience, because we got to know some people very well that we would have never actually known, because you do get to know those people around you and those on committees, but it's not a group that would have sought us out or that we would have sought out. And great friendships, just great friendships.
Well, and it all came full circle last Thursday when at the TCCRI Gala, Phil King presented you with an award recognizing you as one of the Republican women leaders in the legislature. And so as you look back on your time, in the House so far, and, you look ahead to what is possible, do you see this as an inspiration point for other young women, or is this just another story of a Texan who stood up, for you? Where do you fall in this recognition? Do you care that it's for being a woman, or are you just proud of the things that you're able to do on a regular basis? You know.
Well, I think the reason for the award was Senator Nelson, of course, is the longest-serving Republican woman in the Senate. I'm the longest-serving Republican woman in the House, since we've not had that many. The Democrat Symphonia, of course, has served twice as long as I have as a Democrat. And then, of course, Christy Craddock for the Railroad Commission. But I think the award was really for stepping up and taking action as a female. As I said in my remarks, I mean, I've never not felt like an equal in the Texas House. The men are wonderful and easy to work with. And I think they really like the women's work ethic because we work really hard. But for Phil King to be the one to present it was really heartwarming because Phil and I have known each other for 22 years, and his family is my family, and my family is his. I mean, we've watched our children grow up together. We've watched grandchildren being born, and I mean, just a very close friendship that it was so wonderful to have him present that because, I mean, as I said, sitting together for, 22 years on the House floor, and it's been a wonderful experience because he's a wonderful person. And like I said, his family is just like mine, and he knows my family just like it's his family, and just a very comfortable relationship that we have worked together and worked on so many issues together. So Phil is, he really respects women. I mean, he has a lot of women in his family because he has so many girls. And so he really respects women and really respects the work ethic that they have. And it was a very wonderful award that night, receiving it from him.
Well, and it's great to, see these examples of just Texans working together, Republicans working together to lift each other up, to help on behalf of Texas. Really, at the end of the day, isn't that why we're all here, right?
Absolutely. And, the wonderful thing about the House is, too, when you have 150 members, everyone is going through some difficult times in their life. Losing a parent, some losing a child, just difficult times, and everyone rallies around each other and is so supportive. I mean, it's such a wonderful body, and it's also wonderful to know that there's 150 people around the state that if you need something, no matter where you are, they will reach out to you and help you and be responsive in anything you need. And so it's just a great body. I know, people say, well, politicians, they don't have a heart, they're just harass people or whatever. And, maybe there's 1% here and there that you might have an issue with, but they are great people, all 150.
Yep, Texans helping Texans.
Texans helping Texans.
That's right. Well, we're going to go ahead and let you get out of here. It's a busy week ahead for you. But before we do, for the folks back in your district who want to stay engaged in the process and keep updates on everything you got going on, what's the best way for them to do that? Social media, website, all that stuff?
Sure. My website is GeanieMorrison.com. And then, of course, I think they all have my district phone number, 361-572-0196, and know who the office staff is, and just engage with us and any questions that you need, any input that you have. We take anything and put it in CMS and keep records of whether you call us, whether you email us, or if you send us a letter. Used to everything was in writing, not so much anymore, but we handle an email just like it's something that's been mailed to you, and put it in because we want to make sure that we represent our district. And we've got a lot of tough issues coming up this session. And so we go in for every bill and see the fors and the against and why before we make any decisions. So it's very important to have that constituent input.
Yeah, this session is adding more and more layers of that public input with the public comment portal that's now available and stuff.
It's very easy, And the thing is, I think the best thing about where we are with the House, with all that we have to be able to see what's going on, is anyone can participate as much or as little as they want. And that's what we put out there. We do newsletters also, put all the information on how you can access being part of the house. And if you want to just watch what's going on, or if you want to do testimony, as you say, I mean, it's so easy now with the access. And so I encourage everyone to pay attention and see what's going on, because things will be going fast now.
Excellent. GeanieMorrison.com.
That's it.
Perfect. And if you're watching this and Geanie isn't your rep, but you want to find your rep, you can head over to the Texas House Republican Caucus website, TexasHouseCaucus.com. Visit the Our Members link. We've got all the links to their district phone, Capitol phone, their emails, their website, district website, all that stuff. Membership directory, as comprehensive as we can make it. So, Representative Morrison, thank you so much for your time today. I'm losing my ability to talk at the end of this. Thank you for your time. Congrats again on the award, and best of luck on finishing out this session and getting things done for Texas.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, so before we get out of here, we're a few episodes in now. Obviously, we're going to keep this going. We've got lots of members queued up. We've got Angie Chen Button coming in later this week, as well as Shelby Slauson on deck next week. So please look forward to those. If you like this podcast and you want to continue to receive updates or alerts, make sure you follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at TXGOP Caucus. You can find the podcast is available on YouTube. It's also available, the video version is available on our Facebook page. If you want to take the audio version on the road with you, you can download that on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. We are trying to be as inclusive as possible. And if that's not enough, you can go to our website, TexasHouseCaucus.com. Find the podcast there, as well as updates from our members, a complete membership directory with links to I said it in the episode. You already saw it. We got links to their Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, if they have all that stuff. Their district email, their district phone, Capitol phone, how to email the members directly, how to reach their state website, their personal website, all of that stuff. Most comprehensive membership directory in the caucus history. You can find it online right now at TexasHouseCaucus.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you tune in next week, where we will be back again. Let's talk Texas.